Okay, good morning, everyone. Hi. Oh, Catherine, it's a lot of nice pictures you have over your shoulder. It looks like you have a lot of nice memories.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm. And over your other shoulder, the pictures of snow, clouds.
It's just kind of like watercolor kind of, just like blue like splotches.
Mm. They're, uh, they're very nice blue blotches. Okay, let me close my door. Uh, Anyone in the class, while we're on the subject of pictures, anyone in the class into photography? Mm, no? Oh, okay. Well, photography is fun.
Kind of. Mainly
Yeah.
filming though.
Film? Very cool. Very cool. Uh, I think it said, that I said Phil, but of course I said film. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So today is our review day. And it means that the following class, which will be Tuesday, is the midterm. The midterm is all multiple choice. One sec. The format of the exam is multiple choice. As I mentioned, there'll be 100 minutes at least in which to do the test. In fact, there'll be 150 minutes if I can add 100 to 50 correctly, because the exam will become available to you at 9 a.m. rather than 9:50 when class starts. The exam will be found on Schoology, and it'll be structured as a Schoology administered exam, quiz, whatever, what have you. The questions are coming entirely from the book. So it'll only be chapters 1 through 5, plus small snippets of other chapters that we have incorporated into our work. So remember, we've done things in like chapter 7 and et cetera, et cetera. Those chapters are fair game as well. Okay. Does anyone have questions about the nature of the exam?
Is it gonna be more like definition based, like say like it's like a list is like and you have to like kind of tell what it is, or is it gonna be kind of more um what code like does this, or like a mix of both?
Mhm. It'll be more like the second. In fact, with your permission, I'll give you a preview from the Zybooks website of the questions themselves. Why don't we take a look? Perhaps that will allay some anxiety. I know that a lot of people have test anxiety. I want to assure you that one of the virtues of having a resource to be able to grab questions from is that professors often, very often, create questions with the best of intentions, that they be short, easy to understand, and professors often make errors in their judgment. So one of the virtues of coming from the book is these questions are all vetted and are, in theory, guaranteed to be in the material that we have covered, because they're coming from the readings that were assigned. So with your permission, well, let's take a look at some of the questions. Okay, so let's see. So let me add a test and test of the test, and select the questions. So why don't we pick chapter 4? And there are 3 questions available. And let me zoom in. So why don't we take a moment to get a feeling for what the questions are like. So which branch structure does a program use to output yes if a variable's value is positive? And if we dial down the answers, see something like, in order to have an if statement that gives you two branches, it would be an if and an else. All right, what is the value of X after the following code is executed? So you would need to mentally step through the code. So X starts out at 7. If X is less than 7, it isn't. So X equals X plus 2. I'm hoping the answer is 9. Okay, so here are the samples of the actual questions. Why don't we look for another chapter? Do you have any questions about this? So, Victoria, is this giving you comfort about the nature of the questions?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, just for fun, let's examine one more. Let's go to perhaps 5. Now, we haven't done chapter 6 yet, but we've been working with functions a lot. So there could be questions from chapter 6. There could be questions from chapter 7. We've done a lot with strings. We've done a lot with lists and dictionaries. So to put it in the most succinct way, chapters 1 through 8 are fair game. I won't include chapter 10. Even though we have touched on exceptions, we just haven't touched on them enough for me to feel comfortable assigning from there. So chapters 1 through 8 are fair game. Let's take a look at chapter 7. Okay, how about string methods? Okay, so here's a question. My books equals, I don't have to read it, books 105. Find a, I'm hoping that that is a, not sure what that is. So I won't choose that question because I can't figure out what's supposed to be in there. Okay, so that's an example of a question I would not choose. The area postal code is 99501. And then you would have to count. So is the 5th from the end a digit? Is the 3rd, so 0, 1, 2, 3, is it upper? That sort of thing. Oh, wait, that's not right. Yeah, so it'd be true, false, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, this one's sneaky because it's 3 questions in one. You'd only get 1 point. Okay.
I have a
Go ahead, Olivia. Olivia?
sorry, I accidentally muted myself again. Is there a way that we can do this in our own book, or do we just kind of need like to kind of like make like a quiz for us to like study that way, or would it just be better if we just look through?
Well, these are the way the questions appear in zyBooks. So I can use zyBooks to select questions, but zyBooks itself has no way to administer a quiz or a test. So I'll be transferring one by one these questions into Schoology's test format. So you'll take the test via Schoology.
Okay.
Does
So like
that
to
answer-
study, we should just go back through each chapter and like just go through
Right,
the question. Okay.
right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And where was your picture taken?
Canada. Stratford, Canada.
Oh, Stratford, meaning the place where the Shakespeare Festival is?
Yeah, I went last year.
Oh, how nice. I wish I could have gone. At some point in my almost 60 years, I've never gone. Is it fun?
Yeah, me and my roommates were actually planning on going this year, but then it got canceled. That's
Gee,
okay.
why? What did you go see?
I got to see Billy Elliot, Little Shop of Horrors, and then we got to see like a bunch of like smaller type plays. Like there was one about like they're in like Israel and they're like it was like a bombing and they're getting like interrogated and stuff. And there's a comedy I can't remember the name of, but yeah, so we got to see quite a bit actually. I'm pretty sure I saw 5 different
So
performances.
you're there for one of their festivals, like a week or so?
Yeah, no, only like 2 or 3 days. It's like
Mhm.
fairly short. You see like 3 in a day.
By show of hands, let's see, let me change my view here so I can see your hands. Okay, so by show of hands, anyone been to Scotland? Oh, you have to go. So each August, there is an event in Edinburgh called the Royal Tattoo, which is a national competition of pipe and drum bands. And in addition to that, so that's amazing. That takes place inside Edinburgh Castle, which is just fantastic. But in addition to that, at the same time, the entire city of Edinburgh, every space that's large enough to accommodate a play of some kind, of any size, becomes a theater for the week of the tattoo. So you could see hundreds of plays. It's a really cool thing.
I think I'll pass.
No, not that interested in the plays or the drum and pipe bands, or just visiting really cool places. Which one of those you'll pass on?
Bagpipes are my least favorite sound ever.
Oh, I love them. I love them. You can't be down in the dumps when you hear a pipe. So, okay.
I think I'm gonna pass on lots of people within spaces as for the time being. But it would be
For
very
the time
fun.
being.
It'd be very fun to go see at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when the pandemic started, we were about to go to Oban and the Highlands, my wife and I, and that got canceled. Which reminds me, I have to ask Icelandic Air about how long my tickets are going to be good for because they were expensive. Okay. So how about questions? Not about Scotland, which is an amazing place, but about Python.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's not really a review question, just general. Is chapter 6 gonna be due on Tuesday?
Oh, that's at the same time as our exam, isn't it? I'd be happy to change that. But on the other hand, let's think this through. If you have to read chapter 6, well, that's giving you preparation for the exam. So it does make sense to me that it would continue to be due on Tuesday. Okay, is there strong objection? I'm willing to negotiate. Okay, so I'm not seeing strong objections, so let's say yes, it's still due on Tuesday. Okay, so come on, folks, the last few classes, I told you that the review is going to be driven by student questions. So I hope you have questions.
Can we look at tuples again?
Sure. Do you have a question about tuples?
Just kind of in general, when is best to use them and kind of what they're for?
Okay. So let's see, I don't think I started up QuickTime. Let me get that going.
Yeah, I agree. I've kind of been wondering when you would use a tuple instead of a list. or vice versa.
Okay. Alrighty. So let me switch over to the display. Okay. So tuple versus list. Okay. Okay, have you stopped responding to me? Yes, you have. Okay, you're back. I've had just terrible problems with technology in the past week, been very bad. So tuple versus list, when to use each. Well, the biggest difference between a tuple and a list is that in a tuple, the members are read-only, meaning that, i.e., they can't be changed. That is the biggest difference between tuple and list. So if T is a tuple, and let's say 1, 2, 3, and notice the parentheses, that makes it a tuple. So you can access, you can access the elements. For example, there's the first element, but you can't change them. Okay, so that would be an error. So when would you use one and not the other? Is, I suppose it's a bit of a fine distinction. For production code, you would be interested in a certain set of constraints that just writing code to help you process homework assignments in college, you don't have the same constraints. And what I'm talking about is a requirement for high performance. So suppose you had a body of data that you knew you didn't have to modify once the tuple was created, you could just leave it alone. It is faster to read from a tuple, faster to read from a tuple than it is to read and write to a list. Okay. What does that say? I better stop watching the subtitles. So when would you use one? Well, if you are professionally writing Python for production use, then think about it whether or not you need to modify any member of the tuple. And if so, it's got to be a tuple. Otherwise, if it's just the kind of informal code that we're writing here, then just go ahead and use lists. Okay. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. Review, please.
What is the difference between a while and for loop?
Okay. So a while versus for, the epic smackdown, cage match, in the octagon, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the for, well, first of all, you can always find a way to interchange fors and whiles. Okay, there's always a way to convert one to the other. So here's a case where there's good reason to default to a for versus defaulting to a while. And that is, If you know in advance how many times you need to loop, then a for loop is your best and most obvious choice. And in Python, there are many ways of knowing in advance how many times you need to loop. It's not just looping 10 times through the integers 0 through 9 or 1 through 10. With the for loop in Python, you could enumerate, you could do a for loop for the lines in a file, for the members of a dictionary, for the keys in a dictionary. So these are all containers that have a fixed size, a known size. By the way, I had some trouble with my audio. Have I been coming through clearly? Okay, good, good, thank you. So if you have something you can enumerate, like a list, a dictionary, the lines in a file, or you're going to enumerate a certain number of times, like with a range, then a for is a great choice. If you want, on the other hand, to create a loop where you have no real idea in advance how many times you're going to loop, then a while is going to be your choice. Does that help?
Kind of. Like
Okay,
this.
then, yeah, go
So
ahead.
have always been complicated to me.
Okay, let's, how about I draw the flowchart pictures and continue babbling, and you might pick up something of value. I mean, that's always the theory, right? When you're a teacher, it's you just keep talking and hope something works. So how about a for? Oh, we'll start with a while. So with the while, you evaluate some condition. Well, that's supposed to be a question mark. Okay, that's a better question mark. And if it's true, you do your lines of text, lines of code, and then you come back up and evaluate the condition again. So that's the while. Now the for looks just like this, with a little bit of addition down here at the bottom. Okay, so let's draw that. So that is a feature I don't appreciate. And the difference down here is that there's some automatic step that takes place at the end of a for, before the loop starts over again. Okay, and the condition of if for for loops, the condition here is always, is there another item to do? So for example, range, this range would generate 0 through 9. So let's say we're at 8. We have another thing to do. We have 9. Perhaps it is a dictionary.keys. And let's say you have 21 keys in there and you're only up to the 17th key. Is there another thing to do? Yes, the 18th key. Whereas the conditions in the while are really much more general. It's anything that can produce a true or a false. So in Python, I guess my views on for versus while are colored by Python not being my primary language. So in hearing myself talk, in Python, there really does seem to be more of a difference between while and for than in other languages. And so I'm seeing that with new eyes right now, that the for in Python is always working with some container that is being stepped through, while the while condition can be anything that evaluates the true or false. So thank you, Colin. That's something I haven't thought about.
No problem.
You're a good teacher.
Thanks.
Did that
I
help?
would ask.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would ask how to set them up, but I feel like that would just be an answer on the test.
That's okay. I can give you answers on the test. That's part of my promise. If you were to ask me a question word for word right off the test, I would give you the answer. So by setting up, do you mean the syntax?
Pretty much.
Okay. So the while would be it's just the word while, and then anything that evaluates to true or false, colon, and then a block of code, which is indented underneath the while. The for loop is a little bit different, and that would be for a variable or perhaps several variables and that's a pretty cool feature of Python. In, so that's a keyword, and that's a keyword. Some kind of container. And then colon, and then your block of statements, which is indented from here. So an example might be for the day in, suppose you have a list of the days of the week. Where days, the assumption here is that days is something like this. Okay. Now, an example of a for loop that takes, that gives you two variables, more than one, I should say, would be for, let's say, index and value, comma, value. So now I'm getting two variables that will change in every loop. In enumerate days, I suppose because I am an adult, I was free to choose a, start writing over here. So let me just write it over again. For index, comma, value in enumerate days. And notice that these lines of code are indented relative to the for. So Colin, has that helped any more? Did we lose Colin? I think we did. Oops. So who knows? Maybe my answer was just so so amazing. Hey, you're back.
The Wi-Fi kicked me out at the worst possible time.
Okay, and the answer and secret to life is you missed it.
Thanks, Carthage. Really saved me there.
Hey, folks. Something about Wi-Fi that isn't isn't really lay people don't really think about is that Wi-Fi is a radio signal, and everyone who is on the same frequency channel is colliding with everyone else. So when you're alone, Wi-Fi is amazing, but when you're in a dorm or in the classroom, everyone's trying to get on the same radio channel, and that causes everyone to slow down. So when you're in your dorm rooms, every dorm room has a hardwired Ethernet connector in it. It looks like a larger phone jack. So it's called an RJ45, and it looks like this, where the wire, and there are wires inside there, contacts. So that hardwired connection is far, far, far faster and far more tolerant, because it is so much faster, far more tolerant of competition on the same wire. Instead of competing for the same radio channel, you're competing for the access to the wire. And so in your dorm rooms, if you were to invest in the right wire to go to your wall, your performance would be enormously better than Wi-Fi. And reliable.
You know what? I have a quick question about that.
All right.
Or rather mine, because here. If I could get the camera, is this what that is?
What does it look like on the bottom?
If I can get it down there.
Yep.
Yeah, there's like a little LAN socket in there.
Yep.
It's hard to see.
That is what it looks like. I don't know what the purpose of the housing is, but those sockets are what it should look like.
I have no idea why they're not all the same, because people have told me they have different ones than that.
Uh-huh. Well, let's be optimistic and say that the different ones are different improvements over time.
Hopefully.
Okay, questions?
I have a question about try and accept. Have
Mhm.
we just been using that to catch errors before our code crashes?
Yes.
Okay. So can you put multiple exceptions for the same like try, or do you have to do another try for each exception?
No, you can have multiple accepts per one try. So that would look like this. You'd have try, colon, some block of code. Notice that it is indented relative to the try. And then accept. Now, once again, accept and a try will not be on the exam because we haven't done enough of it. But you could have accept with error code one, for example, index out of range, or well, that would be index error or file not found error. So, so substitute for error one the error you're trying to catch, and colon, and notice that is indented. And then you could have more than one. So substitute your favorite error for error 2. Notice the indentation. Also, there may be times where you want to handle multiple errors exactly the same way. You could also do comma. You could catch multiple with the same code if you want. Now, there's more interesting things about exceptions, which we simply haven't gotten to. They're a bit more advanced, so it's certainly not going to be on the exam. Sydney, does that help?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, questions?
Can you like briefly just go over the index function again?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so index of, for example, some list. And that's the basic way to use it. And this will, nope, sorry, I do not have that correct. Let's see, so is the index a method? Yeah, so it might be some list dot index and a value. And this will return, it'll look for the value and return the first index if found. So, for example, if the list is equal to 1, 2, 3, the indices of these values are, this is index 0, index 1, index 2. If you were to say L dot index of 3, it would return 2. Now that's the basic way of using index, but there's also a way of telling it where to start looking, so that if the list, for example, had multiple occurrences of the same value, you won't always find the index of the first value. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Is there a way to use this index that we're using to find like all of like the 3s in a list, for example? Like, could you get it to tell you the indices for all the values in that list?
Yes. Yes. So let me create a list that, all right, well, I'll just continue in the iPad. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3. So the idea is, let me write down the indices, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The idea is that if you were to look for 3, then the first time through, the first time doing that, so if you said L dot index 3, that would return the 2 from here. But the next time, so let's say that, so IND now equals 2. But if you call this again with L dot index, and you're still looking for threes, but then you're starting at IND. So it'll start one after IND, so it'll start here and start looking for threes. So if you see what I'm doing here is I'm capturing the index that I just found in IND and using it as this for the next search, using it as the starting place. So if this were in a loop, it would skip along the list, finding the next version, the next matching value, and the next matching value.
Thank you.
Right. So, okay. So if you think about the word feedback, you're kind of using this second version. See where I'm pointing? Right over there. You see this second version, it's kind of taking feedback from the previous call and allowing you to skip what you've done so far. Okay, questions?
Isn't
Could
there,
you? Oh, you.
sorry. Isn't there a way that you can give it the index and have it tell you the value? Would that just be L dot value and then put the index in there?
Oh,
Or say like L dot value parentheses 4 and it would give you back 1?
oh well, that's the basic way in which you use a list. So here's my list, L, and bracket 4, and that will return 1. Maybe it would help to do some experimentation. Let's go back to the browser, take a look at Replit. All right, so make a new file. Okay, so list is equal to, I'll call it LST just because the L kind of like a 1. And let's do 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3. And let's just try the first version, 3. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so the answer is 2. Now look at the list itself. So here's 0 and 1, and there at index 2 is the value I was looking for. So now let's try. Let's try this. Well, let me put back that. And I'll just break it all down separately. So this will produce exactly the same result. Good. And what if we did IND equals LST dot index 3 and IND, and then print it again? I'll just type it in. Okay, so how about index plus 1? There. Okay, so does that help? I'm sorry, who asked about index? Was that Sarah? Sydney?
Yeah, that helped. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, more questions? Questions on CSV? File reading?
Are we going to have stuff on CSV?
Sure, why not?
Oh, okay. Just the stuff that we've done with it though, right?
I'm sorry?
Just the stuff that we've done with it though, right?
Right, right.
Could we review what we have done with it?
Okay. Can I
In the reader.
Yes, so yes, that's all we've done with it. And we've only done reading with the reader. We have not written any data. So I would not ask you a question on that. In fact, I haven't even shown you how to open a file for writing yet. So going over, you have to import it, import CSV. And with, that's a funny way of spelling with open, and let's say Japanese.esv. Did I spell that right? Yeah. As file in, you wrap the file. So that's just an ordinary open file. You wrap the file in a reader, a CSV reader. And then you can read through the lines individually. For a line in a reader, we'll print. Okay, so yeah, let's do something more exotic. We'll say line counter equals 0. And we'll do line counter plus equals 1. And we'll say print line counter has the length of the line values. Okay, I'm gonna. All right, let's try that so far.
You have it reading the length of length.
You're right. Length of line. Thank you. Okay, so we have that so far. Line 1 has 2 values. Everybody has line 2 values except line 9, which is, I put in purposely as a mistake. Okay, so now let's try this. For item in line, print, and let's see, can I put in a tab like this? Yes, that was a tab character. I'll make it 2 tabs to make it more obvious. Item. Now, the type of the variable, line, is I wonder what it is. Why don't we put that out? Print that out. So print the type of line. Now it's going to print that a whole lot of times, but I don't care. Okay, so it comes back as lists. Okay. Does that work for you, Milo?
I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and I think I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. So the CSV file is just what it is, and it has lists inside of it.
Well, it has lines inside of it. Let's take a look.
Why does it have lists then?
Well, that's the list is being generated by Python for you to wrap the line into a handy data structure that separates the different values.
Okay.
Okay, and while I'm here, I'm gonna correct that. Yeah. So the file doesn't have lists, but Python, in interpreting the file, builds the list per line.
Yeah, where I was trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be, I was trying to wrap my brain around it as in, this is a dictionary. It has lists inside of it. It is not a dictionary. It's just a CSV file.
Yes, it's just a CSV file. And why does it take 4 characters to say sister, but only 1 character to say younger sister?
Because it's an honorific thing. You attach san to the end of things to make them more polite. Where it just says brother and sister, those two are older brother or sister.
Ah, so is this final character, I see they're in common, is that san?
The last 2 characters, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Very cool.
Actually, there's also an O at the beginning of all of them, the first character. And O is generally used to denote politeness.
Oh, okay.
San is when it's a person.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. But your younger brother or younger sister, you would just talk to casually.
Okay. Japan is a wonderful country to visit as well. I hope it's still true, but Japan is the kind of place where you could put your wallet on a park bench, come back the next day and find your wallet still there. Untouched.
Yeah, no, it is. Over the break, I got to talk to a friend from Japan. Or rather, one of my friend's cousin's roommate was from Japan. Because I'm a Japanese major, they really wanted us to meet. And along the way, we ended up talking about how, yeah, in Japan, it doesn't matter. If you're a gal, you can walk alone at night. That's fine. In America, it's not like that.
Right, it's not like that. It's not like that. But and interestingly, comparing that social trait to other countries that have a similar social trait, it's for different reasons. Like in Japan, a woman can walk around at night because because it's just the right thing to do not to accost someone walking on the street. However, in like Singapore, you can also, as a woman, walk along the street. But in Singapore, it's a little bit different because if you do accost somebody in Singapore, the consequences is likely, I don't know, decapitation. So different cultures have the same effect for different reasons. So, Singapore is also beautiful and a great place to go. Just don't commit any crimes there.
Have you traveled to all of these places, Professor?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So travel is life. Travel is like the best thing imaginable. And I miss it a lot. Okay. Questions?
Can you head back to main.py?
Over here?
Yes. Oh, wait, that's not the one we were doing.
Yeah, I do a lot of them. So what were you hoping? Flashcards? This one?
I know the one we were just doing.
The one we were in before was
Unless
index.py.
unless we were in one of these and you were just down lower and I didn't notice.
Okay, what code are you looking for?
I just want to make sure I have everything.
Okay, now I can wipe out this, hopefully by hitting undo and get back to where we were. Whoops. Is this the code you were looking for?
No, that was the one.
Okay.
I thought.
Are we gonna have any like challenge questions on the midterm? Or is it all just gonna be multiple choice?
It's all multiple choice.
All right, that's all.
So the goal here is everybody gets 100. That's my hope. Questions?
Just kind of more in general about like the exam. I know you said it was going to be like on Schoology, and sometimes when there's like an exam on Schoology, it can be set so that like you can't go back to questions. Is that going to be on this exam, or will you be able to like skip a question if you don't know it and go like on and then?
Well, let me answer in the most forthright and honest way possible. Is I've never seen the options to set, so it's going to be whatever the default is. Which I'll look into it, and it's okay if you skip back and forth in between the questions. So I'll try to find that and make sure that you can. But if I can't, I apologize because I just, you know, some people are good with computers and some people are not. And I don't know. I haven't seen the option.
So about functions.
I'm sorry? What about functions?
About functions.
Yes.
You can either leave it with empty parentheses or you have to put an argument inside.
Correct.
And what would that argument be?
Well, it depends. It depends on what the purpose of the function is and what the intentions of the programmer were.
So what kind of thing would you make an argument?
Okay, well, I'll take this code right here and I'll call it def process file and no arguments. No arguments for me. Okay, so I did the indent. And how about I call the function? No arguments. And I'm going to take out this line because it's not pretty. Okay. So here I created a function that is able to operate on exactly one file. And because it does only one thing, I didn't need to give it a parameter. But tell you what, let me make it possible to work with any file. So I will replace the name of the file as the argument and file name, and then open the file name. Okay, that should work the same way. I can also specify a default value for the parameter. Let's call it equals studata.csv. If I run this now, I will get exactly the same result. Let's prove that. It's still Japanese.csv. So you can see that specifying the value for a parameter overrides its default value. Okay. However, having a default value, oh, this is going to be painful because there are 3,000 lines in studata. Now I can remove the value of the parameter and therefore get the default value, which is studata. And okay, let's just do it. Okay. So Milo, does that help?
It does, yes. Another semi-unrelated question. How do you make a CSV file?
You know, that's a great question. Let's cover that. It's not going to be on the test, obviously.
Yeah.
But tell you what.
Which is why I said it's kind of unrelated, but it's something I've been curious about.
Well, here's one way you could do it. Using a spreadsheet program like Excel. Give me a moment, it's starting up. It's still starting up. It's, I don't know where it is. Oh, finally, there it is. Okay. So
we cannot see it.
Yes, I know. I'm just not ready to show you yet. Okay, and Excel. So here is a sample of a spreadsheet. And perhaps you have a spreadsheet with column headings. And value 1, 1, value 1, 2, and value 1, 3. Let me just copy these, and I'll add one more line. Then I'll put the line, so this is row 2. Okay. So let's see if I use the, okay, you're not going to be able to see. Let me switch to sharing my whole desktop so that you can see the menus. Okay, so now you see my mouse, good. So way up here, File, Save As, and one of the choices you get is File Format. And There you go, CSV. So you can go directly from a spreadsheet program like Excel to, let's go to, I want to save it somewhere. Okay, so I'll save it there. Okay, so save. And you'll get this warning, but don't worry about it. So for example, a CSV file doesn't know how to do formulas. So it doesn't know how to do fonts or bold or colors. It just has values. So that's why you get this possible data loss warning. And now I will, let's say, text edit and load. I don't remember where I put it. Desktop? I forgot where I put it.
Downloads, maybe?
Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
let me,
it was in the Perry Kowalowicz.
let's see. So, don't you hate that? So it's something called test. And, it's, I didn't even know that was a feature. So it's telling me where to find it. Okay, good. So let me open that. And go here. And test.csv, open it up. And there you go. How do I make this bigger for you to see? Zoom in. Okay, so it's good. Yeah. Okay. Now this also shows you that you can just use any method of text entry. Any editor will do.
And just to be clear, as long as we're not, because like there's Excel on my computer, as long as I'm not futzing around with the color or the font or anything, what I put in there should be fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if you do play with color, font, et cetera, that information will be lost. But what will be retained is the text. All right. That was a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was just looking at my new vocabulary yesterday and I was like, oh, I don't know how to put this into something that I can work with.
Okay, so you can
Oh.
find the file Japanese.txt. Actually, we could do it right in Rec if you want.
So if I did just enter and then use the comma separation
Yep.
format,
Yep.
that would be fine.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'll take that line because I don't know how to enter this.
Right.
So I will just be a little crazy. I'll put that there. Now we have a feature in our program that we're writing to allow you to check from, ask from column A looking for column B or from column B looking for column A. But I'm just demonstrating that you can just edit this file. It's just text. What makes it special is that the items of information that we're interested in are separated by commas.
All right, thank you.
All right, good. Okay, other questions, please?
question, because I'm noticing in this format, you don't put a space after the comma.
Yes, right. If you have a space, it will show up. It'll be passed through the CSV reader.
So it's not going to cause an error or anything. It just won't look as nice.
Correct.
Okay.
Now you can use a string function called strip, L strip and R strip, to remove spaces on the left or right. Okay, more questions? Okay, if I'm hearing silence, then we can end early. I'll give one more opportunity. I'll keep answering questions as long as you have them. Anybody? Okay, then I'll see you Tuesday morning. Now, remember that the exam becomes available at 9. You just go ahead and start whenever it is that you want to start. And you'll find it on Schoology. Okay?
Question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still meeting for class then?
I was just thinking about that. There isn't a reason per se, a requirement per se. However, I'll still come to class, and you can optionally come to class. And perhaps you might have a question about a question. So I'll be online here, available to answer questions about the questions. Okay, so class attendance on Tuesday is optional.
What time does the exam close on Tuesday?
At 11:30. So it'll close at normal class ending time. Well, is that fair? No, I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that. It will close at 4 p.m., which is at the end time of the other class. This way, both classes get exactly the same opportunity. So both classes will start at 9 and close at 4. Okay? And I hope, by the way, that is a satisfactory accommodation for those who need extra time. Okay, everybody. I'll see you or not on Tuesday. If you have questions, drop me a line.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep.